Do you want to produce professional looking designs that you're able to sell to clients, not for hundreds of dollars, but for thousands? Now, in order to do that, you need to know how to produce a professional looking design that is actually worth that much. And this is what this series is all about. Today, I'll be running you through how to create a web design in Adobe XD so you can start getting better results. What's up everyone, I'm Tristan Parker and I am committed to helping you get better results and up your web design game. Now this is part 4, that's 3, this is part 4 of a 5-part series on how to create a web design. You're almost at the end and this is the exciting one. At least it's the one that I find most exciting. This is where you're going to take everything you have done so far and flip it into a professional visual website composition, and trust me, it's going to look awesome. I will be running you through how to switch a wireframe and your style guide / mood board into a visual composition, and by the end of the video you will end up with a professional looking design that you can take to your clients and start eventually charging more money for. If you haven't done so already, absolutely hit that subscribe button, hit the bell notification, and you'll be notified for other future releases and more awesome videos. I'm going to have to run you through this step by step on the Mac, so let's head over there now. So essentially we're starting pretty much where we left off, and if you guys have been following along with the other episodes, then this will look pretty familiar to you, but if you haven't, don't worry, we're still going to put together a design, so let me just run through it. We've got a couple of wireframes that we've put together in the previous episodes. And if you do actually want to watch these, then there is a link down in the description. Go back, watch them, then head back over this way to catch up. Essentially, it's just some pretty basic wireframes just to give us a pretty strong idea of how we're going to go about laying the content out for this particular website. As you can see, nothing too heavy, just really nice and clean. And then over to the left, we have a style guide. Now, I have filled this style guide out a little more than I did in the style guide episode, which was part 3. I've included a logo and we have a lot more images. Now, I've just placed these images in just to speed up this process a little bit more so I don't need to like jump away, go and grab them and bring them back. For me, they're already there, which is perfect. And down here we have a couple of grid dots. Now these are just more like stylized effects which I like to sometimes experiment with and chuck into the design. So now that you're up to date, let's just jump straight in. So what we're going to focus on doing is converting this wireframe into a visual representation of a website, essentially a full visual composition. So let's start with that all important value proposition. So we're going to get rid of this logo, just delete that one, and we're going to go over to our style guide and I'm going to grab this logo. So I'm going to copy it so everything's still here when we need it. There's no point taking anything away from here just in case you need it again. It's a nice central place to have it. So I'm going to click on it, copy that one, go back over and paste it over here. Now let's make that a little bit smaller. What I'm going to do is I'm going to show the grid. There we go. Next, let's delete these and we're going to input our navigation. Now remember, we focused on the navigation in the planning side. We defined all of our pages that we were going to need, and this is where we are going to put them. So press T on the keyboard for text. Let's just drag a text field, and I'm not going to bother with the home page. I like to just rely on clicking the logo. It's become a very sort of generic convention within web design that you would click on the logo to be taken back to home. So I'm just going to start with about, and I'm going to triple space on the keyboard, and then we have inspiration, triple click on the keyboard. Then I'm going to put a double WDL for Web Design Life. And then we've got contact. If we select that, and I'm over on the right, I'm going to go down to assets, and we're going to see all of the assets that we produced earlier in the last episode for our style guide. Click on that, and I'm just going to click the link text. Here we are. I'm just going to add a couple more spacing in here. You'll notice that there's full stops after them, and actually I'm happy with that. The way you get the full stop is Adobe XD will automatically add a full stop when you start adding spaces, because it assumes it's the end of a sentence. But this is actually a really nice touch, and I like having full stops within this design, I guess. So let's align that text to the right, and I'll place that over there. And for now, I'm going to keep it that color. This, hi, I'm Tristan. I am going to use our secondary header type. Let's try with a 50 point text. And I want to make that purple. Here is our main value proposition text. So essentially helping people create better website designs. That's what I'm leading with for the value proposition. And we're going to put that to heading, or at least our largest size heading. And actually, because this is our hero, our value proposition, I want this text to be even bigger. I want it to be incredibly impactful. So what I'm going to do is let's change that to 100. And with doing that, I'm going to have to adjust the line height as well. And let's change that to 110. There we go. That's good. I'm happy with that. Now this block here represents text. So I'm going to delete that. Again, press text on the keyboard and drag my text box. So let's Command A and select all of that. And I want to change that to our body text. And I'm going to change that to the body text color. Our heading text, I'm going to change to black. And now let's do the call to action. So remember, this call to action is actually one of our components. So what we can do is change that individual component state, and it's going to change the style of that button around the entire site, which is awesome because that's going to save us a bunch of time. So let's click on that, go over to components and right click it and go to edit master component. And what it would do is, if it can't see the master component anywhere on the artboards, it will just spit it out and dump it on the sidelines. So if we can identify this as the master because you'll see the diamond in the corner. It is a solid green. If it was an instance of the master, then it would be a hollow green. So double click that to access it because the items are grouped at the moment. And I'm going to change the fill color to purple. And then I'm going to change the text to our link text. It's changed the color of it, so let's just change that back to white. And there you have our button. Now that we've changed the master, if we go back up to our design, you'll see that it's also changed that button as well, which is ideal. So let's change the text in there from call to action to let's get started. I anticipate this will probably link to the about page or the contact page. Most probably the contact page. Cool. Now for this, I'm going to offset that slightly. There we go. And to ensure all of these are in line, let's just select them all, go up here and click to align left. And that will make sure that everything is nice and in line. So moving over to the other side, we need an image to replace this, so I'm going to keep that there for now. Let's head back over to our style guide, and I'm going to select this one. So again, copy it, paste, and let's just blow that up. Cool. There we go. Now I'm going to add a very subtle roundness to this. Let's go with, there we go, let's give it like 10 pixels or something. And I want to add a drop shadow. So over on the right in the control section, let's add shadow. I want it to drop down quite far away from the shape, so I'm going to knock that down to 20. I'm going to put 10 here, and as you can see, it's starting to move away, but we need to add more blur. So I'm going to change that to, let's give it 25. It's quite subtle, so let's up that to around 20. And there we go. If we remove the grids just by pressing Command and so Command Option, was it Command Shift? There we go. Command Shift and press the quote marks on the keyboard. So there we have our image. Now these sections on the right, we want these to be our social media tags. So what I'm going to do here is I'm just going to hold Option, click and drag this, and it will duplicate it. So that's a really nice little shortcut for you guys. And let's go with Facebook. Again, I'm using spacing to add the full stops. YouTube. Instagram. And Dribble. Now for these ones, I don't want them to be bumped. I'm just going to drop the weight down to regular. And we're going to drop the size down to 18. And center align them. I'm going to rotate these and put them in place of, let's undo that. Perfect. Cool, so as you can see, this is really starting to come together now at the top. So let's add some more sort of style to it to just make it pop. It looks nice, it looks a little bit plain, but I want to add a little bit of color to it. So I'm thinking a nice triangle shape coming down behind the photograph, and we'd probably, yeah, we'll make it come down past the elements below as well. So if we go over to our pen tool, I want this triangle to sit, I want this triangle to be a solid color, and I want the text to sit on top of it. I'm probably going to turn the text white, but I'll show you what I mean by that. So let's create a nice triangle with our pen tool, close the gap. We're going to remove the border on it, add the fill, and I'm going to change that to our secondary color of purple. Now if I press Command Shift and the left curly brace, it's going to send that item to the back. And now we want to select our two navigation items and turn those white. There we go. Let's not forget to remove the image that was sitting behind from our wireframe. So there you go, our hero section is looking quite nice. So let's move down. Here, I mean, I anticipated that we'd probably use a selection of logos. Again, it sort of adds social proof. For now, I'm just going to ignore these, so I'm just going to delete them. But if you guys want to include them, by all means go. It's your design, so you can make it as you wish. moving down. Now that we've moved our logos, let's just bring this up a little bit. So this is going to be our heading. Let's change this from the Poppins to Roboto. And let's add that to our primary color. Now I want to continue the style that we have at the top. Watching or listening. And let's change that to, why is that? Whoops. Let's get rid of the capitals. I had caps lock on there. Watching or listening, question mark. Align that to the left, and let's make that our secondary color. So I want to keep the style that I've got running up here at the top, just for consistency. So one thing you'll notice, and this is incredibly important, I want you to be really mindful of spacing. What I mean by that is, we do this by selecting an appropriate line height for a text to start with, so it's not too far apart and it's not so collapsed that it's sitting on top of each other. This allows the user to read it a lot easier. Also, my text underneath is not sitting too close, like so. Again, just creating that little bit of space, it allows the user's eye to flow from top to bottom. And again, with the button. Now if we move over, let me just explain this around the image. You'll see that I have a fair amount of space around here, and we are utilizing what is called white space or negative space. This means that we add nice amounts of space between elements so the user's eyes can easily digest the information that is put in front of them. If everything was condensed together, it would be a little bit overwhelming for the user, and we wouldn't be able to take in anything really. At least by adding a lot of white space and spacing things out quite nicely, you're allowing the user to look at it and immediately start taking in what you want. Now, by implementing this mindset throughout the rest of your designs, this is what is going to allow you to start producing really professional looking websites rather than designs that look incredibly amateur. So just keep that in mind, and we will keep that in mind throughout the rest of this process. Right, next up, let's add a couple of our images. So if we go back over to our style guide, I've got these two here which I'm going to use for the content creation section. They're currently grouped, but if I just ungroup them, we have our colored overlay, which has a multiply effect on it. We have a white shape, which is essentially causing our image to be black and white, and that has a color overlay on it. And altogether it gives that really nice effect that I think really works with this design. So let's group that, and I'm going to copy that one and I'll paste it here. So this one's going to represent our podcast section. So I'm going to grab this shape to start with and bring it to the front. And there we go. And what we're going to do now is mask the image behind to the shape on top. And if I ungroup this, let's just delete that icon inside. I want this to be slightly bigger, but I want to remain with the rounded corners. Let's go with 10. And if I select both of the elements and then go to object, and let's go to mask with shape, and we're going to have it sit nice inside like that. Now, I don't think I'm going to include any text here. Podcast, let's move that title down, and again, let's change that to heading 3. I'm going to change that to our secondary color. This coming soon, we're going to have into our secondary title text, and let's make that our primary color. Now there's a bit of a separation here, so what I'm going to try is, let's get a line and draw that in there. Let's Let's make that 2 pixels. I want our border color to be the same as the text. There we go. Now let's do the same on the other side. So what I'm going to do is delete these. Group them. Once they're grouped, hold Option and drag that across like so. There we go. It has duplicated, but we are now going to change it. So head back over to our style guide and let's grab the image that we're using for YouTube. So let's double click on our grouped items and it will move in a layer. Double click again and we're going to access the image that's within the mask. So we can now select that image and delete it. And while still accessed, if we paste our image inside, it's going to still keep that mask, which is perfect. Move that up. If you hold Shift while moving this around, it will keep it in line like so. If I let go of Shift, you can move it around, but holding Shift will just let me drag it up and down nicely. Now if I just double click out of the shape, it will bring you out of the masked layer. I need to double click in again to access the title. I'm going to change that to YouTube. Now this isn't coming soon because YouTube channel is already live. The only reason why I put coming soon on podcasts is because it's not yet live. So double click and then delete that. One thing I want to do now is to keep in line with the sort of style and branding of the YouTube channel. All of the artwork has nice thick borders around it, so I'll on these images. So if I press R for shortcut key, it's going to access the rectangle shape, and I'm going to click and draw above this image. We don't want to fill, but I'm going to add a border of 10 pixels. Now remember, the shape behind has a rounded corner, so I'm going to add a rounded corner to this as well, 10 pixels. And I'm going to change this to our secondary color. Okay, so it's not changing, so what we need to do is use our color picker tool, and if we just color pick the triangle here, there we go, that is going to work. So you'll notice that I haven't actually put this inside our group, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to Command X and cut that, double click to access the group, and then paste it back in, and now it is, as you can see, a part of the group. Now I need to do the same this side. I'm going to paste the shape in. It's pasted it over to the right. I'm going to click and drag that across. Remember holding Shift. And this one I want to be our primary color. So I'm just going to color pick that from the text. And there we go. Now select all of this, ignoring the triangle, and I move it up. This dotted line here represents the page fold of a traditional like desktop screen, so that is 1080 pixel height. So now we're happy with that section. Let's move a bit further down. And this now moves into the portfolio side of things. So let's change this title to some of the cool projects I've created. And we're going to want to change the style of that to our second level heading, and to keep in line with the rest of the style. For now we are just going to change that to our primary color. Now let's add some secondary text. Let's say the web design life. Hey, or ha. Cool. I'm just going to get rid of these capitals. It kind of doesn't make sense to have them as capitals. Perfect. And then again, we are offsetting that. Just the core aspect of web design in producing something that looks visually pleasing is consistency. So if you start a style convention within your design, you need to honor that throughout the entire thing. And just by doing that alone is going to take you a very long way into producing professional designs. Cool. So as we changed our button component state earlier, you'll see that this button has automatically changed, which identifies or at least demonstrates that it's going to save you a lot of work when utilizing components. So we have images here. We don't want these, so we're going to delete them. And these images here I've already grabbed, and these are from my personal Dribble profile. So I'm going to copy these, and when we move into development, or at least when you develop the project, these will just link through to the Dribble. So it's a really nice, quick, effective way of having a portfolio on the website. Dribble is a fantastic portfolio platform, so it seems silly sometimes to replicate that type of work when it's not necessary. So we're just going to link directly to them. So I'm going to move those up and close the gap. Let's turn the grid back on by pressing Command Option and the speech mark. So Command Shift and the speech mark. And let's just change the size of these, bring them in line in the grid. Let's move that button over. Cool. They are looking in line. Oh, they are not. So what we're going to do is we're going to select these two and align them to the left. These two we're going to align to the right, and then select all three and spread them evenly. And that's the same for those ones. There we go. Now they'll all be consistent. Select them all again. We want to use that same type of drop shadow, so let's go with 20, 10, 20. There we go. I think that looks okay. Let's leave it as that for now. So here is a great opportunity to add a little bit of a graphical break between this upper section, and it's going to sort of solidify us moving into a new section. So I think if we add a shape to sit in the background here, we'll perhaps have it as another color. That is going to produce a very nice graphical break. So let's use the pen tool again, and we'll just add a shape here. Again, I'm going to go with the diagonal line. Bring it across there. I'm going to have it sit behind the photograph that we are looking to place there. And there we go. Turn the border off, add the fill. And let's move that to the background. Cool. I kind of like that. So now, just by adding the black background, you'll see that the colors that we've used here don't exactly work so well. They're a little bit difficult to see and are probably a bit of a usability issue, or accessibility issue, shall I say. So I'm going to change this to our primary color because that stands out a lot more, and let's just change this to white. Our purple button, just to be on the safe side, we're going to change that to primary as well. There we go. And that looks good to me. Now, moving further down, the last part of the form, the call to action. This is obviously a really important part, and if you want to learn how to go about structuring an effective homepage, at least a homepage that is designed to increase leads and convert customers, then I do have a video on that, and I'll link it up in the top of the video and also down in the description. So let's have a look at jazzing up this form a little bit. Let's get rid of all of those boxes. Again, let's try the secondary text here. Let's put, got any questions? Question mark. Cool. Yeah, let's offset that as well. Cool. Now I want to do something a little bit different here. I don't want to use traditional form, boxes with the borders. I'm gonna try using just lines with the text sitting above it. I'll show you what I mean. So if we go back to our line tool, draw a line in here. Remember, we're going to use the same weight for the lines that we use at the top, so that's 2 pixels. And that is going to be our secondary color. I'm going to choose the top one to be our secondary color because I want that to demonstrate like the active state. So if someone was typing into that field, I would want it to display as purple. Now let's add name. We want this to be, let's go with our link weight. And again, I'm going to choose that to be secondary. And let's just move that there. Now I'm going to select both of these. And be careful that it keeps selecting this triangle here. A good option would be to lock that layer. And if you want to do that, head over to layers, select it, head over to layers. And you'll see it that it's there. It's path 299. If we just lock that, then if we select these again, my mistake. Oh yeah, that is locked. So if we select these again, it's not going to move, which is perfect. So I'm going to copy these two. I'm going to hold Option, and I'm going to click and drag, and it's going to nicely duplicate them. So again, it's that shortcut that I mentioned earlier. This is going to be email address. And I want this color to be, let's go with dark gray. Again with this one, change the border to dark gray. Now this one's going to be slightly bigger because it's the text area form field, and let's go with message. Let's bump the button over there. And there we go, there is our form. It's a little bit different to the traditional form. It's very simplistic, it's quite nice, I quite like it. So since we've started adding the style to this design and adding graphical breaks, you'll see that the content towards the bottom is starting to get quite squashed. Now going back to referencing the white space and the consistency, you'll notice that we have a lot of space like here, in here, and around here, which is perfect. So we need to honor that throughout the design. So the best way that we're going to be able to do that is we need to increase the size of our artboard. And that's absolutely fine. There's nothing wrong with doing that. This little cheeky call to action is our master component, so we don't need that, so we delete it. Don't worry, deleting it off the artboard isn't going to delete it from the components panel. So let's just bump this down a little bit. Now we need to add the image here, so head back over to our images. I'm just going to grab this one for now. Paste it in. We're also going to mask this one to give us that nice 10 pixel rounded edge. Get rid of the border. Remember, if you press V, it's going to press V on the keyboard, it's going to shortcut key to the arrow so we can select our elements on the canvas, select them both and go back up to object and mask the shape. Cool. Now let's add that shadow. How do we do that? Where's our shadow option? Okay, well I I don't know why our shadow options disappeared. It's probably got something to do with masking, but for now, to get around this, what I'll do is I'll just draw another shape behind it. Add that shadow. That's 20, 20, 10. Press Command Shift and put it to back, and it will sit behind it. So it's a little bit of a hacky workaround, but just to get the visual composition sorted, it works. And there we go, there is our image. So as you can see, it's really starting to come together. I want this footer to be black as well. We need to change that logo to be the logo within our change color to white. Sit there, nice and central. These are going to be links. Let's just delete those. And as a shortcut, scroll back to the top. Let's grab these, delete these. We don't need those from our wireframes. Paste in. Now I'm going to remove these full stops as well. Cool, select them all, and we're going to center align these to sit underneath the logo. So for this example, it's a really simple footer. Depending on your website that you put together will determine what type of information you want to utilize in that footer. But for this example, we are keeping it dead basic. Cool, so now we have the layout. Now let's move back over to our style guide and have a look at these shapes that I had put together. Now essentially these are, if I just ungroup this, these are just circles that have around a 30 pixel space between them. You can see there. And I've just built them up to form a square and a rectangle. So if we group those again and copy it, and what I like to do is add these sort of abstract style shapes to areas of the page. Sort of adds a little bit of life to it, adds a little bit of style. They're not important, they don't make or break the design in terms of how it's perceived by users or how you go about using the site itself. It just adds a little bit of sauce or spark, let's say. I'm going to paste that in there. And I'll shove that in the corner. I'm going to position it at the back. Now if we move away, there we go. It adds a nice little sort of graphical filler between this image here and the title to the section down here. But it's not too overpowering that we're starting to move away or reduce that negative white space that we were talking about in the beginning. So let's see where else we could potentially use this. Let's see if we can add some behind this button. How does that look? Yeah, see, now this is great because it draws the user's attention to that area of the page, and we have a call to action here. And being able to draw the user's attention to the call to action is perfect. And let's go with one final one here. Again, let's position it to the back. Cool. Well, I'm happy with how this page is taking shape, and hopefully you guys are as well. Hopefully you can see how quick we have been able to transition from wireframe all the way to a full visual composition. We've utilized all our elements within our style guide, and it's been a pretty seamless transition. Now, what I'd recommend you do now is take a look at the other pages or the other wireframes that you've put together and see if you can replicate this and produce yourself a full working website composition. And then in the next episode, we're going to look at how we go about linking these all up and prototyping them, adding some clickable links, and basically ending up with something that is awesome. So how awesome was that? You're going to have to implement this process across the rest of your pages for your website design project. But if you have any questions or want to share with me what you've done so far, then just drop me a comment down below. If you're interested in learning how to create better websites and up in your web design game, then guys, just hit the subscribe button, hit the bell notification, and you'll be exposed to more awesome videos when I put them out. Now, next up, we're going to be taking this website design to the next level by implementing Adobe XD's prototyping features and exploring all of the tools that Adobe XD has to offer in that area. I'll see you there in the next one.